Hi, this is Shakira.
And this is Lia.
We're cooking up a great conversation.
Starting with a cup of insights,
Add a tablespoon of fun.
a slice of drama,
Drama. A pinch of salt.
para may konting alat, and lots of pepe.
Siyempre, may anghang.
Welcome to Salt and Pepe Podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Salt and Pepe Podcast. This is Shakira Season.
Welcome back to Salt and Pepe Podcast. This is Lia. Hello, everyone.
Hi! How is everything?
All good after that last episode. So, exciting yun. And yung energy na naman na-feel talaga pag interesting topic talaga.
Exciting yung topic. I really enjoyed that. Totoo nga na parang we had a different kind of energy like you were saying during the recording last time na parang ang saya. Ang saya natin na parang kilig. You're like
Hindi talaga. Yes, it's a
giggling like schoolgirls sa kilig. And hopefully, there will be many more of those kinds of episodes to come. I had so much fun with it.
Yeah, still looking forward to the comments, right? We asked if they were interested, if they like to have the same topic in future episodes. So, waiting for your feedback. But, meron na nagsabi na they like that it's actually relatable to straight and homosexual couples. So, okay lang daw talaga. It was really good.
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. We also posted a poll about how we all feel about sexual compatibility. So if you care to answer our poll, please go on our Spotify page and vote whether sexual compatibility is a deal breaker for you.
Hey.
Anyway, welcome to episode 16, where we are going to talk about toxic Filipino traits. So, alam ko ikaw yung nag-suggest ng topic na to. So, tell us why. Why did you think of this topic?
It's interesting kasi I thought of this topic kasi it comes out already on our feed, right? Sometimes we just talk about it, just a discussion between us, but you realize na people are actually talking about it and just making them aware that there is a Filipino toxic trait that we should really address and maybe discuss and talk about. That's why I thought about it.
Or para kasing there are so many behaviors na nakasanayan na natin and we feel like that's just a normal part of conversation or our culture. And I think it's important actually na tinatawag natin siyang toxic because you're saying na hindi siya maganda instead of just accepting it as that's just the way it is na wala kang magagawa, right? And I feel like it's also timely because this year flew by so quickly and malapit na naman mag-holidays. So, ma-expose na naman tayo sa madaming social events and relatives and friends. So, madami tayong maririnig na mga toxic conversations and toxic topics and comments. So, it's good na maging handa tayo to identify them and also to know what to do in case maka-encounter tayo ng ganon kind of speech na hindi natin masyadong na-appreciate. And I think you and I have a really good perspective on this. I thought about that because October is Filipino-American History Month, and I think, our topic was supposed to be more on like immigrant life. But I think this topic actually is also related because as immigrants, a lot of yung mga homegrown people still in the Philippines, they believe na kung wala na tayo sa Philippines, hindi na tayo exposed at saka wala na tayong alam tungkol sa mga toxic traits or cultural stuff. But actually, I learned as an immigrant actually na mas may appreciation actually ako sa, different nuances of our culture. and I can easily identify kasi exposed na tayo sa different kinds of people and how they relate. So, nakapunta na tayo sa madaming mga social interactions where people don't behave the same way. Na parang
Yes.
nakikita mo, 'di ba, na it's possible pala to have
Oo.
like a casual interaction na maganda, na walang toxic comments, 'di ba? So, it's good to know, and I think we have a very unique vantage point on this topic. What do you think?
That's true. Actually, some of the feeds or the things I see are actually from comparing its immigrants' background, because exactly what you said, they can compare already where they're at right now and what they're used to.
Mhm.
And exactly, not in gatherings, in the workplace,
Mhm.
diba?
Mhm.
Nako-compare talaga. And there is, you will know that, oh, ano lang pala talaga to, like in our culture, no? So,
Mhm. Mhm.
exactly, yun nga, this is a good topic to talk about, yun nga, and it's already the gatherings. There are also a lot of concerns na naman like that. I mean, there's also a toxic culture in other family gatherings here in North
Mhm.
America, and
Yeah,
it's also
yeah.
talked
Mhm.
about. But yes,
Mhm.
that's true.
Yeah. I feel particularly strongly about that kasi at least on my in my experience when I left the Philippines, I thought that yung mga things that I wasn't crazy about na mga traits, parang mawawalan na ako ng exposure. But then sometimes you do interact with mga family members or like friends that you meet na kapwa Pinoy mo, and then parang nare-realize mo, parang shit, yan na naman yung parang nami-magnify, tas na-identify mo siya kaagad because you're not exposed to it on a regular basis. Pag nakita mo, pag na-encounter mo, parang, ay shit, ayoko talaga nung ganon. And it's nice. I think it's nice to have that kind of appreciation. But to
First,
continue on and let's start this conversation. When we talk about toxic Filipino traits, what is the first toxic trait that comes to mind, Leah?
ako talaga yung shaming. That's the first thing talaga. That's something that's evident na you can see naman. But it's, again, luckily nga, I told you my family's like that, but you can notice it naman from everybody else or
Mm-hmm.
kwento ng mga friends, and you can see it naman sometimes. Sa akin talaga yung smart shaming, it comes up, I think social media talaga would also expose a lot of Filipino traits that come out na it's really ingrained on us. Like, ang pinakaayaw ko talaga yung sinasabi, eh, di ikaw na. Like, they're asking your opinion, you give your your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on it, and then they will say, eh, di ikaw na. So that really, for me, that shuts me off right away.
Mm-hmm.
Na parang, okay, 'di ba? Parang, what does that mean? 'Di ba? That statement, no? Ikaw na ang matalino, ganyan. Parang, you're asking our opinion, you give your answer,
Uh-huh.
and then you
Uh-huh.
get that, then, wala, it really, automatic, it just says stop talking, 'di ba? And of course nga dun sa gatherings naman ang body shaming talaga. Yun naman talaga.
Mm.
Ultimately, that's always the first thing na matatawa ka talaga. And sometimes they just make fun of it. Pero if you really think about it, it's not really funny, 'di ba? Parang, what automatic. Kasi you get to meet other people naman talaga here. And the
Mm-hmm.
first thing talaga they will notice is really, uy, tumataba ka. Uy, ano
Bakit
nangyari
nga?
sa'yo? Ganun pa talaga. Yun pa yun, ano nangyari sa'yo? Parang, ha? Tapos bilang, lumaki ka ata. Okay, it's really my body and there's really something wrong with it. Diba? Na parang, it's so nakakapagod. Diba? Na
Bakit nga,
parang,
'di ba? It's very interesting to note actually kung bakit ganun, parang it's always the physical and it's always negative, 'di ba? Parang, uy, bakit ganyan? Ano nangyari? And it's yung the weight parati yan. Kahit ako, like, imagine, most people think na payat ako, although of course I have my own body issues, but it's also because of that. Because I also, just like everybody, like encounter people, even in my immediate family, na pagkakita sa akin, ang taba mo, nangyari sa'yo, bakit ganyan-ganyan ka? Na parang talagang, nagkaka-complex talaga ako na until to this day, na pag alam ko may makikita akong relatives, parang feeling ko kailangan kong mag-crash diet na sobrang magpapayat ako because I don't want to hear it. And tanda-tanda na din natin, right? To be so sensitive to that. So, I just hope na I think the younger generation actually nagko-call out na sila ng ganyan, 'di ba? Sumasagot na sila, yung parang meron na silang comeback. So that's good, but it's still very predominant. Kahit sa Facebook comment nakikita mo pa rin sa mga matatanda kaya nakakaasar, right?
Yeah, actually, it's the older generation talaga na parang ikaw pa nagtanong ka, "Oh, tita, kamusta ka na? How are you feel?" I mean, you're asking them how they are, and
Mhm.
then they will answer back na something different, na physical kaagad. But syempre nakakapagod, but and you just surprised that it's just ingrained. Alam mo yun,
It's just natural, right? 'Di
natural na
ba?
parang they really actually don't know na
Mhm.
it's not
Mhm.
really open, but it's really tiring to answer and parang you
Yeah,
don't wanna ask something else. Ganon.
right. And what you mentioned earlier about the smart shaming, like a few years ago, I wrote an article in Rappler about smart shaming. Eh. Kasi parang di ba, it's really so frustrating kasi usually that comes about during a conversation na parang ini-engage ka ng tao what your thoughts are. Right? And when you try to explain, parang automatic shutdown, di ba? Na
Sobra.
parang they don't want to hear anymore. But instead of like saying, I don't really feel like talking about it, or like, oh, it's okay, like, I don't want to continue, they have to like insult you pa na parang, oh, sige na nga, ikaw na yung magaling, or whatever, because they don't want to either open their minds, or they don't want to parang go deeper into the topic. In so many words, aside from like, ikaw na, matalino ka na, ganyan. Yung nasasanay na actually ako nakakarinig nung, yung parating may shaming na parang may insults pa, na parang you'll be called names or whatever, na parang, oh, sige na nga, ayaw mo na lang. I guess it teaches you that this person can't handle this kind of conversation, right?
I guess. Yun lang. It's just sad.
Nakakatamad lang. But you know what? It's a great filter. It's a great filter actually nung tao when they like shut you down in that way, like in an intellectual way, and they inform you in so many, not so many words that they're not capable of that kind of discourse. It saves you some time because then you won't try again. Di ba? Parang
Oo. Alam
maghahanap
mo
ka na
yun.
lang nung ibang kausap mo, parang nagme-mental note ka. But yeah, in relation to the shaming, kasi parang ang galing natin mag-shame. Di ba? One thing that came to mind is slut shaming, na napaka-common yan sa Pinoy culture.
Oh my, sobra.
When we were younger, it was really much worse, right? And I guess it comes naturally to us because of our culture, conservative upbringing, being Catholic. Um, these days, medyo nako-correct na yan ng mga kausap mo,
Salamat.
younger people, thank God. But
Thank God
I
for
still
that.
hear it. Examples of slut shaming na baka hindi natin alam na slut shaming yon mga
Yes.
comment. Because we just think na automatic lang na comment. We don't even think na slut shaming siya at masama siya. Things like when someone is a woman, usually a woman naman parate eh, wearing something na exposes a lot of skin or something that's like fitted or very or flattering or what people could describe as like skimpy or sexy
Sexy.
or just something that actually looks good and attractive, parating ang kasunod nun ay ang landi naman yan. Just because sexy yung clothing. Like your clothing has nothing to do with, being seductive or whatever. Pero parang yun na kasi yung connotation that if you expose some of your skin, that means that you're asking for attention and you're asking for sexual attention. So, and also this leads to victim blaming, di ba? When it comes to sexual abuse or kaya catcalling, parati natin sinasabi, bakit ano bang suot niya? Baka naman nilalandi mo. Saan ka naman pumunta? Bakit ka mag-isa nung gabi? Like, ba't ka pumupunta sa mga lugar na yun? Wala kang kasamang lalaki or whatever it is, right? We always blame the woman for whatever happens to her na parang may ginawa siya parate. And we have to remember that the clothes that you wear or even how you act, kahit na anong klaseng action mo at a party, it
Yes.
never warrants abuse,
Or assault. Yes. Oh my
assault,
God.
or whatever. Kahit na ano pang suggestion yung ginawa mo sa party or whatever. Even when it comes to that moment and ayaw mo na nung whatever's nangyayari,
Say no.
you can say no and it's not supposed to be on you. But for many people in our culture, the fact na lumabas ka ng gabi, right?
No.
Actually, kahit
Diba?
daytime, basta lumabas ka ng bahay, parang, kasi bakit ka lumabas ng bahay? Parang, di ba ako dapat lumabas ng bahay?
Or mag-isa.
O mag-isa,
Kasi
bakit
mag-isa eh.
kasi, bakit kasi mag-isa ka? Bakit kasi nagko-commute ka? Yung mga gano'n na, but you never hold the abuser accountable, right? Kasi you're always blaming the woman. And, other subtle comments that we've gotten used to, na which we really should remove and also call out when we hear it. Mga comments na, ay, may anak siya pero walang asawa. Parang you hear that, tas parang, most of the time, parang, you just think na parang, ay, medyo old-fashioned naman yung taong yun. But you have to stop that kasi it doesn't follow anymore na kailangan may asawa ka para magkaanak ka. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent or a bad wife or partner kung nagkaanak ka na wala kang asawa. Many women are choosing to raise children on their own without a partner. So it doesn't follow. It's not
Wrong.
it's not wrong, and also it doesn't reflect your virtue and your morals just because you're a single mom, for example, right? Or being seen with different guys, for example. I know this one particularly. I heard this a lot in college about me. Na sabi nila, ano ba yan? Kung magpalit ng boyfriend, parang nagpapalit ng damit. That's what they
Wow.
that's what they
Ikaw?
said about me. Di ba? Parang hindi mo ma-imagine kasi syempre nga tibo nga ako. Pero nung time na yon, I was, of course, like, you know the story that I've been telling, na I was really trying really hard na to find like some kind of right guy or to try different kinds of guys because I really wanted to know kung ano ba talaga, because I didn't know. Pero yun yung tuloy naging reputation ko na kung magpalit daw ako ng boyfriend, parang nagpapalit daw ng damit. And I was just like, so? And, parang, I think normally that's supposed to shame someone, but maybe that's not my upbringing. I don't know. My parents never really had those conversations with us na parang, "Hoy, ikaw dapat isa lang," or whatever. And
True.
also, my sisters were very progressive, especially my oldest sister, Mirza, who always taught me that I could do anything and like do anything and see whoever I want. I just need to take care of myself, you know.
Exactly.
But, I very early on already knew that, whatever your dating activities are, it does not reflect your morals and your ethics and your values and your virtue and your goodness as a woman and your suitability for marriage, yung mga ganyang kinds of conversations, right?
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, other things that I think we should avoid in woman shaming language, na maybe we don't pay so much attention to, but really dapat maging sensitive tayo sa mga gantong bagay so we can stop it at the moment we hear it, or we can stop repeating such things. Yung sentiments like, ay, wag na yan, nalawayan na, or ginagamit na. Diba yung parang
Oh
ganun,
my
kasi
gosh,
parang,
I
don't
know
you hear that? Diba yung
exactly.
parang kunyari, parang, sige, edi sa'yo na yung ex ko, nalawayan ko na yan, ginamit ko na yan, so sa'yo na lang. Yung mga ganun na parang napaka-gross.
Sobrang
Like, we
gross.
shouldn't tolerate hearing that, and we shouldn't repeat those words too, na parang, referring to men or women, right? Or non-binary. Do not refer to anybody as like someone who's parang spoiled goods or rotten or used up just because you were intimate with them already. Because that's also a reflection on you. So, ibig sabihin ba nun pag may nakipag-sex sa'yo, mapapanis sila, kadiri na sila? Di ba ka ikaw yung kadiri, right? Kung
Panis ka
ganun
na
yung,
rin.
yung effect mo, right? So, Yung mga
Ooh.
nagalaw na, wag na yan, nagalaw na yan, or ginalaw mo ba siya? Yung ganong klaseng talk na it's disgusting in English, skadire in Tagalog. It has no place in a modern communication, right? And I think this also is deeply rooted on still how much we put so much emphasis on virginity. And
True.
this has always been a peeve of mine. If you read, like, if you ever encountered my Ask FM, like, question and answer times, and
Yes.
people would always ask me, like, oh, would say something like, oh, my boyfriend took my virginity. And I always try to change that language of took my virginity. Like, nobody is taking anything from you. And I feel like language is very important. Like,
Yeah.
when you say someone took something away from you, I'm not a virgin anymore. Like something is lacking. Like, I think we need to avoid that kind of language and that kind of sentiment. Like, of course, it's a rite of passage, but we need to stop thinking of it as some kind of negative. Kasi sa guys, hindi.
Yun
Sa
nga eh.
guys, right? Sa guys, parang it's something that they can't wait to get rid of. Na parang as the earlier na
Exactly.
makipag-sex sila for
Wow.
the first time, it's like a test of, like,
Trophy.
mas attractive sila, mas macho sila, or whatever. But, in reality, we really
I think
should be think before we act. And it's not, baka naman mamaya sobrang bata pa sila, they're rushing into sex because they want to get rid of that status na walang experience. But, we all want to have good experiences, and we don't want to be faulted, especially women, faulted just because we have some kind of sexual experience. That's why when I have these conversations, I really try to emphasize that actually sexual experience makes you more attractive. I try to, like, turn that around and make it a positive, because it doesn't make you lose value. I feel like it adds value to you, especially if you're able to take charge of your own body, if you're able to take care of yourself, if you're taking precautions to
yes.
prevent consequences. I think really believe that that gives you more value than being parang ignorant and innocent and you
I was
don't
gonna
know
say that.
anything. It's very dangerous to
When
be
you're
that
being
way, right?
yes, when you're being smart, it really adds value, 'di
Yeah.
ba? You're
Right?
confident and
Yeah.
smart. Yes, you know what to do. You're in control, 'di
You're in
ba?
control of the situation. And yung women, more women hating language that you hear is yung nireregla yan kaya masungit.
I know,
Yes,
'di
I
ba?
still hear that. And actually, a good friend of mine actually made that comment to me recently. And the hair on my neck stood up. And I really, like, got into a fight almost. Kasi parang I have not heard that kind of language, especially from a woman, especially from a lesbian, right? Hindi ko na yan naririnig eh. Sa stupid guys ko lang naririnig yung mga ganyang language. So I had to, even though, it was kind of awkward. And even my wife was like, oh, ano ka ba? Parang just be nice. Like, she's kind of older. Hindi niya alam yung mga ganon. Tapos ako, no, I
Yes,
have to say it. I have to say that that kind of language has no place in modern conversation. And I think on her end, it was very innocently said kasi sa kanya, parati niyang naririnig yon. And nobody has ever said na that's not a good thing to say. But for me, it was like a very bad thing to say na parang dinidiscount mo yung whatever the other person is saying, and you're just saying, oh, nireregla ka, you have your period, so therefore you don't make sense and I shouldn't take you seriously, right?
exactly.
Mga
Discount.
ganyan, right?
Grabe, no? You're just giving those scenarios, those statements, natotoxic na ako. Alam mo yun?
Parang umiinit na yung ulo mo, but it happens
Really?
all the time. And if you don't know how to tell if certain language, especially when it's about women and slut shaming or misogynistic language, just ask yourself the question of, would you say the same thing to a guy? And usually the answer is no. And usually that's how you know that your language, what you're saying is not is really terrible. If you don't say those things normally to a guy, like for example, ano ba yan? Bakit ganyan? Ano naman yung lipstick niyan? Bakit ganyan? And you criticize the makeup. Like, you don't say anything about a man's appearance when they appear, right? It's just like, that's it. What you see is what you get. Ganun talaga. But with women, it's always like, but ganun yung blouse, hindi bagay. Yung bag niya, ganun yung bag niya, luma. Yung mga ganun. Ang dami-daming anti-women. Especially women against women, right? Which makes it really sad. Right?
Yes, daming double standards talaga, no? Na talagang nakakainis. Ako when I always have that now, 'di ba, my social media is really awareness. So,
Mhm.
from women's in sports, and then yung laging my hashtag is ang hirap maging babae sa mundo.
Mhm.
That's always my hashtag because it's 2025 already.
Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
gosh. And you're still hearing those things. Yun, yung slut shaming, it really leads to victim blaming. Kaya doon ako naiinis talaga. That's really that's my trigger. Kasi I've really had discussions already on that about how women dress. Oh, the discussions I have with family. It's not my mom or dad. It's my dad actually. But anyway, we always talk about that women now dress because they want men to see them that way. I'm
In a
like, huh?
sexual way.
Yeah, or can't women just dress because they feel good
And
dressing that
even if women like dress,
to
let's
show
say their intentions are they want to feel sexy and they want, guys to look at them in
attention?
a sexual manner, whatever, even if that's their motive, but most of the time, really, it's not. But even if it is, it doesn't give men the license to touch them without their consent, no
Yes,
matter what. Kahit nakahubad pa yan, lasing pa
exactly.
yan, unconscious pa yan, na nakahubad sa harap mo, you have no right to
You're right.
touch someone without their consent. So I don't know why that's so hard, because I think it's just also ingrained na parang it's fair game pag nangyari yun, because you have the license to do whatever you want. Because nga, women's consent, and also just how women are not empowered nga we
Exactly.
don't give them the right, and we don't respect what women say. Kung anong sabihin nila, kunyari sabihin nila, I don't want to date you. Hindi, nireregla ka lang eh. Parang dinidiscount mo,
Exactly.
dinidismiss mo
Lagi.
parati. You don't listen, and you don't respect what a woman is trying to say. And therefore, it becomes dangerous because it gives you the license to violate her, even though when she already says, I don't like this, then you just say, hindi, lasing ka lang or
Akala
whatever.
mo lang ayaw mo.
Akala mo lang ayaw mo, pero try mo,
Try mo lang.
magugustuhan mo. 'Di ba? 'Di
Exactly.
ba?
And that, dun ako, I remember that one, parang from the PNP pa, the Philippine National Police,
Mhm.
parang para maiwasan ma-rape. As in, ang daming nakalista. Like, don't go out at night, too late, make
Wag
sure wag ka
magsuot ng
pupunta dito, wag ka magsuot ng ganitong Ang dami! Hindi lang 3, 10 pa ata. It's like
Mhm.
10 lists of what not to do so you don't get raped. Hindi lang sabi yung, men, stop it or else you'll be jailed.
No.
Tapos, 'di ba?
Yeah. You
That's
know,
that na-tick me
and
off talaga.
if there are any guys listening to this, actually, you should be insulted by those kinds of sentiments, because parang sinasabi nila
Yes,
na
that's
ano
what
ka
I think
lang,
of
na
you.
para kang rabid dog, na wala kang control sa sarili mo. When people like just keep blaming women, or parang sinasabi na boys will be boys, or wala tayong magagawa, lalaki yan. If you allow that language, you are admitting na wala kang control sa sarili mo at kahit sino i-rape mo. Right? So you should also,
Exactly.
as a guy, not accept that kind of language around you because it is a reflection on you. That's what I think,
Exactly.
right?
That's true. Woo! Anyway,
Kakainit ng ulo.
toxic nga
Parang we
pala
can
talaga 'tong
spend an
episode.
hour. We can spend an hour on that, but we need to go on.
Yes. So, that's one nga, shaming. Yun lang.
Mhm,
So, please, if you hear that, you can speak out, 'di ba? Hindi siya
mhm,
dapat na i-tolerate na. Anyway, going on, another Filipino toxic trait for me is, it's good, but kapag over na, extreme, it's really toxic. It's utang na loob,
mhm,
right? That's fine. You always give gratitude to those who help you. Period,
mhm,
right? And when you help, for me, when you help because you want to help, there's
mhm,
nothing in return. Unless you
mhm,
say, oh, I'll do this
mhm,
today, make sure tomorrow you do this. I mean, yun, pag may kasunduan, may kasunduan.
mhm,
Pero if
mhm,
you do something, it's because you just want to do it. Diba? That's for me, na parang, even yung sobrang tagal na tagal, utang na loob na, diba? Even though your accomplishments on your own right now, it's because still that utang na loob 10 years ago, even though the accomplishments you're doing already is your hard work, right?
uh-huh.
So, and to think sometimes nga yung utang na loob is just they giving birth to you. Utang na loob na ba
Yeah,
yun? 'Di ba?
yeah.
So,
Hindi ko naman kasalanan yun, ah.
yes, nag-mix na yung sperm and I came up and the egg and the sperm mix, that's me, 'di ba? But still, yun nga. I mean, it's nice to be grateful,
Mhm.
but it shouldn't you shouldn't really put that as your card to do something for the other person to do something back in return.
Right. I think this especially relevant for us immigrants and also OFWs, right? Na kasi may assumption kasi na pag ng ibang bansa ka at medyo umangat ka sa buhay, now you have the obligation na parang pang-iangat mo sa hirap lahat ng mga kakilala mo na naiwan mo sa Pilipinas na parang cargo mo sila lahat, right?
Exactly.
Which is a terrible thing because everybody is also struggling. I think like those who have never worked outside the Philippines, there's always the assumption na madali ang buhay natin as immigrants, but we also have our obligations. I think the risks are higher for us kasi hindi pwedeng, magka-quit na lang ako, uwi na lang ako, walang kasing ganon, right? So we also have to think about all those things. And yung excessive na paniningil dyan sa utang na loob, it's really so toxic kasi nagagalit talaga yung mga tao pag hindi ka makatulong. Like, just say no once. Ang dami mo na kasing maririnig minsan, right? Kasi there's always that expectation na, you're supposed to give back. You know, um,
Mm.
there's the assumption na children are supposed to be a retirement plan. Many
Yes.
parents have kids para pag tumanda daw sila, may mag-aalaga sa kanila, which is a terrible reason to have kids. And when I hear someone say to me, ay wala kang anak, sinong mag-aalaga sa'yo? Number one, I'm curious kung aalagaan ba siya ng anak niya. And pangalawa, you kind of see, like, is this the reason that you had kids?
Exactly.
Right? Na parang, ginawa mo ba sila para you'll be fine? And first, that's a terrible plan because there's no guarantee of that.
True.
And second, it's a terrible thing to do to do to your kids. The other assumption is it's the eldest child's job to take care of all the other siblings. Diba merong ganyan na pag
Breadwinner.
nakatapos na yung isa or basta panganay, ikaw maghanap ka ng trabaho para makapag-aral. Lahat ng mga kapatid mo, ikaw na. Meanwhile, hindi naman ikaw gumawa ng mga batang yon, right? Actually,
Exactly.
I heard a friend once say, bakit problema ko yan? Kayo naman yung nagpakasarap na gumawa ng anak after anak ng anak. Tapos ako na like, I didn't even partake in any of the joy of making these children. Ako yung sasagot, right? So, I think there's hope because this is something that can be corrected and needs to be corrected, especially now that young people actually are able to decide whether parenthood is for them. I think increasingly, I'm hearing a lot of women, especially, already opt out of parenthood and actually say na it's not for them, right? So kung meron ka ng empowered to decide whether or not to have kids or the right time to have
Yeah.
kids, I think we should also keep in mind that you shouldn't become a parent if you expect your kids to take care of you
Exactly.
or finance their siblings. Parang mag-isip ka muna, if you don't have the finances to take care of yourself, don't start making other people. 'Di ba? Kasi wala kang ipapakain. That's really, really your responsibility. Or kung ipapasa mo sa iba, yung responsibility, especially to the children, huwag ka nang gumawa ng bata. It's not fair. And like what you said, na parang the only utang na loob, your utang mo yung ginawa ka ng magulang mo. Like,
Oh
I
my.
didn't, actually, none of us asked to be here.
Exactly.
So it's really the parents' responsibility, and I hope that people stop running away from that responsibility. And if you do decide to have children, please make sure that you instill in your children that they are free to live their own lives. Even if you suffer, you try your best to support yourself, but make sure that you tell your children na, as a parent, you will try your best to equip them with whatever tools they need, education, or, all the important experiences and life lessons, a good set of values, but that they will be free to make their own decisions, to do whatever they want in life, and to not worry about you. Kasi napakabigat na burden yon for your child, and they won't be able to think about anything else except trying to please you and finance you and to think of your own survival. And I can't, it's like, it's also hard to blame, di ba, mga parents, because everybody's struggling, so you just want to get some help. But just like as struggling parents, you know that there's so many things that you miss out on because you're worried about finances. Don't put that burden on your children again, because it's
Yes.
already hard for you. It's even more difficult for a young person, right? Whether or not your kid is going to be grateful is up to them, and it's based on how you raise them. Paying it back is nice, but it's not required.
Yes.
Parents definitely should not make their kids feel that they have a responsibility to devote the rest of their lives to the family.
Oh my gosh.
'Di ba?
Yes.
Kasi nakikita ko yun parati eh. And then you see how much people, like grown-ups who have that responsibility, how much they carry, how much guilt, and how much weight on their shoulders that they can't even like stomach their own success kung hindi successful lahat ng people around them. Hindi nila makayanan. They can't enjoy life because they feel like they have obligations.
Oh yeah,
You
'di ba?
know?
That's
Right?
really hard. It's really sad, 'di ba? Na parang you cannot move because you have, yes, you cannot be happy for yourself. If you want to get something for yourself, you're gonna think, naku, hihirit na naman sila if I do something, right? If I travel,
Mhm.
if I buy something, if I have a new something, they should have
Yeah.
something as well because hihirit talaga eh.
And
'Di ba?
another thing that's magnified by social media. 'Di ba,
Yes.
yang inggitan na parang, oh, bakit wala kang padala sa amin? Meron kang biniling ganito, ganyan, pa-abroad ka na lang, sarap ng buhay mo. Stuff like that leads to resentment. If
Yes.
possible, if you want to be resentful, can you just keep it to yourself?
True. At saka
Put it on
don't
the other.
ini-equate niya kasi kaagad yung exchange rate eh.
Yeah.
It's not the same, right?
It doesn't mean na mataas yung exchange rate that life suddenly became easier for the people who are over here.
Yeah.
And I can see na parang, I guess, sometimes akala nila parang madali kasi talaga eh.
Parang you're not gonna shell naman enough, so much kasi naman the exchange rate is high. Konti lang naman bibigay mo dito kasi, 'di ba? Pero it's
Iba
hard.
talaga kasi, it's hard to explain until nasa ibang bansa ka na. When people like criticize you, for example, of like, wow, ang dami mong naiipon, buti ka pa nakakaipon ka, eh kami hindi. And sometimes, you just want to say, there are so many risks for me. Kung mawalan ako ng trabaho dito, kung magkasakit ako, and
Masakit.
my insurance doesn't cover whatever I need done, like, I'm on my own. Hindi naman ako pwedeng humingi eh. Wala naman akong
Exactly.
hihingan because ako yung hinihingan, right?
Yeah.
It's like
So
that. But
many. Yeah, not even nga, even like also outside the family. Other utang na loob things are just really, it's hard. That term, you use it to the extreme eh. 'Di ba? Na,
hindi, tapos parang napakalaking insulto nung wala kang utang na loob. And
ex-
parang ang iba, it hits so differently. It's so painful pag nasabihan ka ng ganon, even though you don't deserve that kind of comment, right?
yes.
So in
Now,
relation to
yeah.
being a toxic, these toxic parent traits like utang na loob, is another toxic trait of lack of accountability, right? It's really part of our culture, and I discussed this before. I think may clip pa nga tayo about this, that it's typical that nobody apologizes, nobody owns up to their mistakes. Everything is just swept under the rug. Parang it's so toxic, and parang wag na yan, hayaan mo na lang, right? It's like so many generational consequences and so many resentments na naiipon lang because there really nobody ever like actually addresses something and says, oh, yung ginawa ko nung isang araw, I shouldn't have said that to you, I'm sorry. That never, almost never ever happens. It's very, very rare. Parang, di ba, minsan parang if someone feels bad, bibigyan ka na lang ng prutas or something, parang, di parang, bibigyan ka na lang ng gift, tapos, wag na pag-usapan yan, past is past, tapos, hayaan mo na lang. I think it's
Danger.
very harmful because it promotes and it allows abuse. It allows harmful habits and traits to continue and bad parenting to continue kasi walang recognition and accountability and giving the apology and telling your children most importantly that you recognize your mistake and you're not going to do it again. Nawawala yung trust, and you just, as a child, you just kind of permanently see your parents as hurtful people who will not apologize to you. And it's a terrible way of, seeing the world, right?
Yes, hindi lang yun. I mean, there's a lot. It connects. It just, if you're accountable kasi, you will remember and you will not really do it again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Diba? Yun yung magandang point na if you're accountable na para, okay, I remember pala I did that and I said I won't do it again, diba? Sa akin, it goes beyond na family. Ako talaga, when I think about accountability, I think of politics right away. Sobrang, diba? Na parang, or, there's always something to blame. Yung nasa outside yung blame lagi. Kasi ganito eh. Si ganito eh. Si ganyan. Hindi talaga ikaw. It's always, kasi the time I was not, ang daming rason.
Excuses, right?
Sobra. Yun nga,
Mm-hmm.
accountability at utang na loob for me also goes again to politics, 'di ba? Na parang, of course, utang na loob, somebody will fund your campaign or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And of course, when you get into the seat, that's why naman they can spend a lot for the campaigns because when they get to the power, they will get that back. How,
Mm-hmm.
'di ba? Corruption, 'di ba?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Accountability. Again, if something happens, they would blame it again on
Mm-hmm.
other things instead of this, 'di ba? They'll say, kasi nung time na yon si ganyan, ginawa ni ano yan, bakit hindi ko gagawin?
Yeah.
Ang dami
And then,
excuses talaga.
yeah, I feel like a lot of the things that we grow up with, it has a manifestation and like what you mentioned, on a national level, on a global level actually. Kasi pag nasanay ka, for example, in your home, your upbringing na people take take accountability for their mistakes and they apologize, you bring that to every place you go, workplace,
Or
government, or whatever. And hindi ka makakatulog when you do something wrong and you don't own up to it and then you don't apologize and, make amends and say how you're gonna do things differently. Pero kung nasanay ka na walang no such thing as apologies, taking accountability, and you can just forget about everything, you will bring that also in your other relationships in workplaces and in the government. Kaya tayo ganito. Because it's cultural.
sobra, 'di ba? I mean, they do they can't understand what accountability really means. It's really
Mm-hmm.
important. Kasi nga when you do also something, 'di ba? When you decide on something, you should be accountable for that decision,
Mm-hmm.
'di ba? Hindi because sabi ni ganyan, eh kasi gano'n naman talaga, 'di ba?
Mm-hmm.
Always. So it's so important that you have accountability. So at least before you do something, you'll be able to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
'Di
Mm-hmm.
ba? Ay nako, so
Right.
whew.
Parang nakakapagod, ano?
Nakakapagod talaga. Pero it's so interesting if you really think about it. Kasi ako na naman, that's why nga we're able to say these things. Because when you were younger, hindi ko naman sinasabi na I was never like that, 'di ba? That's why
Yeah.
you learn, 'di ba? And you know
Mm-hmm.
talaga eventually, toxic pala yun. Because ako din, when I was younger, kasi she told me to do that eh. That's my
Yeah.
teacher will say, oh, if they tell you to jump in the river, you'll jump in the river too. Ganon. 'Di ba? So,
Mm-hmm.
that's my favorite tito, explanation. But when you grow up, you will do those things because nga it's in our culture eh. We learned that, 'di ba? But we also learn to unlearn it, 'di ba?
Yeah.
So sobrang interesting na yun, it's not like I didn't do that before, but it's something that you will understand when you get older and you hope, you really learn it. Anyway, next na. Eto.
Yeah.
For me, next, chismis culture.
Ay, nako.
I think
Lord.
that imagine in our country we have marites and tolits, 'di
Mm-hmm.
ba? I mean, if it's not in our culture, we wouldn't have those
Ay, what's Stolitz? I know Marites, but what's Stolitz?
it's for the men. Chong, anong latest? I forgot. I
Ah,
forgot. It's naman for men who are chismoso. So,
okay.
ano yung latest is tolits. Yun yung ano. So, it's so interesting that we have terms regarding that, 'di ba? Names for the
Yeah.
chismosas, 'di ba? Because it is in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And tuloy, at this point, we believe already what they're saying. Because of the chismis, we don't already go to the person
Mm-hmm.
directly. For me, just go to the person directly, 'di ba? At least it comes from the person talaga and you won't create stories in your head, 'di
Mm-hmm.
ba? Kasi sometimes it takes two naman. There's two sides of the stories all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to know. And pag may dumating sa'yo chismis, sometimes it should stop on you na if you can do that, 'di ba?
Mm-hmm.
May darating naman na chismis, if that can stop sa'yo, it should stop with you, 'di
It's
ba?
very, ano kasi, exhilarating
Yes.
and
Stories eh.
addicting, right? To talk about other people. It's very distracting. And you don't have to deal with yourself if you're talking about other people. Yung
That's
kung
true.
ano man yung issue mo, ano man yung mali sa buhay mo, whatever goals that you need to fulfill, you can easily forget about it kung makialam ka lang sa problema ng may problema. And like, that's why actually the draw of social media, the feeds of what other people are doing, it's so distracting from our own situations. Kaya nga ang dali-daling ma-hook doon and ma-distract. And when I think about chismis culture, I think about this term that I learned recently called triangulation. And it's defined as the act of pitting people against each other. Yung for example, yung may nakausap ka, tapos sabihin yung common friend natin, huy, si ganyan, sabi niya, ganito ka daw, or nagtatampo kasi hindi mo daw in-invite sa ganito. Yung parang gumagawa ng gulo. You're making a story so that this person that you're both close to becomes an outsider and suddenly you're bonding with this other person about something negative, about the other person na parang pag-usapan natin to para maging close tayo because we both agree that this person sucks. It's such a toxic behavior. It makes the person that you're both close to look bad. But I see it all the time and I've been experiencing it. It's so toxic. It's unnecessary. Again, it's another distraction. And it's something that you do when you're not secure about your friendships and your relationships kasi hindi ka satisfied na yung bond ninyo ng whoever it is, friend or relative, family member, is enough that you can build on that and have a fulfilling relationship with that person. Kailangan magdamay ka and you have to talk shit basically about other people just to feel na, oh, we're better. And we both don't like that other person na wala namang kinalaman, wala namang ginagawa, but it's so easy to hate because it's really good fuel and it feels so good to to feel that you're better for some reason and you're not hated and you have an ally in this hate, right?
Yes. I thought that, I mean, it's interesting na akala mo, it's a common trait. I mean, it's not a common trait, but it happens to other people. Akala mo ganun ng isang tao, pero you realize that that's a characteristic pala, na parang they say something negative about somebody else to make them look good. Yun yung sad. Kasi nga,
Diba?
kaya bagong friend. And what's weird is they're still your friend. Even though
Yeah.
you're saying bad
Yeah.
things about that person,
Tapos,
na parang, ay, alam mo, wag mo ano yan kasi ganito yan.
oh,
So, a new person comes in, and then you already, hindi pa nakikilala ng other person, yung person na
siniraan mo
yun,
na.
ha? Sinisiraan mo na agad, ha? And that's weird for me, na parang, so sometimes, syempre, you're new in that, na parang, oh, this person is parang taking care of me, pinaprotektahan ako, di ba? Without
Pero,
even knowing the other person pala. Siya pala yung
siya pala
negative
yung,
talaga.
yeah, and creating trouble and it's so
Sad.
terrible and
Yes.
I've I've been experiencing this a lot recently and I'm just like, oh my God, how did I fall back into this mess? And it really takes an effort to not be part of that. And you really need to be disciplined in that regard. Na kung ayaw mong ma-involve sa chismis na ganon, yung paninira ng tao, you really need to stop. Things like at people at their tracks, like parang sinasabi mo na kaagad na, listen, I don't, I want to get to know that person on my own.
Yes.
Or I'm sorry you had a bad experience with that person, but I have a good relationship and I'm gonna, see, thanks for your concern, but I also have a friendship with that other person. And when you say something to that effect, that you're not going to entertain that kind of conversation, this other person will stop talking to you about negative stuff, which is good. But it's such a hard, like, it's so hard to be disciplined that way kasi nga, it's exciting and it feels like you have an ally and someone is protecting you. But actually, one thing that we always forget and should remember is that if someone is talking shit about another person, they are talking shit about you. They will not hesitate, especially if they don't know that person well and they don't know you well. Like, that they can easily flip sides. If this is their way of becoming close to someone, it's going to happen to you kung ini-entertain mo yung ganung klaseng.
Yes, it can
right?
happen to you. And it's really
Right?
something to think about na first time mo palang makilala yung isang
May
tao. There are
warning na.
people, right? There are people na first time mo palang nakilala.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Parang,
Meron akong nami-meet kasi ng mga ganyan recently
sad.
na hindi ko pa nakikilala yung other people. May warning na kaagad. Parang, come on. Like,
Exactly. Why? And you have to think, why are they doing that
What is
right
the
away?
motivation, right?
Yes.
What is their intention? Why all this parang preempting of parang destroying the other person's reputation right away? Parang, bakit? What's in it for them? You have to be a little bit suspicious kung ganon. Because all of this stuff, and we need to remember, especially when we fall into that trap na tayo yung nagsispread ng chismis or negative things or, bad comments, it is a reflection on us more than it is on the other person.
Yes, yun. Before I didn't think about that. Pero when eventually I met people like that and then I met the person that sinisiraan nila na
Mm.
parang it's not pala true, 'di ba? Or
Mhm.
you you know, you just get to know the other person. Doon ko
Mhm.
na-realize, wait, I think nga if a person does that right away initially,
Mm.
you have to think right
It's a
away.
red flag. It's a
I
red
think so
flag,
too.
and we should be more alert to red flags. And when people just out of nowhere
Out of
start
nowhere.
just out of nowhere kasi
Seriously,
naman talaga
ngayon.
hindi ka naman nagtatanong, right? Hindi ka
Exactly.
naman
I'm like, what?
nagtatanong. Then ang dami na kaagad na negative comments about everybody. It's really a red flag na parang ang dami naman. But then they still hang around those same people that they hate. So that should tell
That's,
you something. Kasi kung talagang ayaw mo dun sa tao, you dislike
yeah.
them, you will stay away from them. You will create a boundary to keep them out of your life, and they won't fill up space in your head. You're not even gonna talk
Exactly.
about them because you've disconnected from them. Pero when people have so much time to talk about
Yes.
other people negatively,
Ooh,
you have to think about that, especially if that particular person, you know that their life is a mess and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing in their life to be more responsible or whatever to achieve their goals. And then ganun pa yung personality nila na mapanglait, naninira, and whatever. You know why. You
yeah,
can see it. And then it's up to you if you want to invite that into your life or not.
exactly. Ooh,
Yeah. Whew!
interesting.
Bakit nga nakakapagod ano
Kasi may
yung mga
naaalala
trigger,
ka na
di ba?
gano'n, eh.
Parang natitrigger tayo na because we're talking about all of these are from our experience, right?
Experience.
And we've been around, longer than some of you to know like the consequences of these things and to know the motivations of people when they start acting this way. So
True.
another trait that we are exposed to is yung pakitang tao. Yung parang, I guess in English is parang keeping up appearances, di ba? Na parang there's a external facade ng tinatawag ko dyan press release eh. Yung kung press release mo, yung what you want to convey to the
True.
world and the person that you truly are, you know. The lumang trait na to actually nung bata pa tayo elementary school when they're teaching yung mga bad traits before yung mga crab mentality, yung mga pwede na, yung mga ganyan,
Oh,
right? Nandun kasi kasama yung pakitang tao doon sa mga traits na yun. So this is an old toxic trait. But, in the past, this was manifested by yung mga tao na kahit walang pera, they'll go
yes.
overboard na magpa-party or para sa
Papa-fiesta.
porma so that they
Yes.
they look like they look prosperous, or yung mahiling magbigay sa church kunyari, or parang ina-announce yung mga donations nila, they show
Mhm.
that they're doing good deeds even though they're not really genuinely generous. That's how they used to show it before. But now, again, with social media, I feel like every single post or action, people who love to post stuff, I feel like there's always a part of that that's called virtue signaling. Basically, you're
Mm.
telling the world that you're a good person, you have good values, and kung kahit yung mga opinion mo, yung parang ang daming nagpo-post na, I donated this much to this person and wala siyang ganito noon, pero ngayon binigyan ko siya. So therefore, she was so thankful, so sweet. I'm just so happy to help the poor. Yung mga ganong
Yes.
patronizing na na they're just announcing to the world yung good deeds, because you know that the true givers, the truly genuine
Yeah.
givers, generous people, they don't even talk about it. They don't mention it. They're the ones na anonymous yung donation. They don't want the praise. They don't announce anything, 'di ba?
True.
Kasi a lot of it really is parang yun na nga, press release. You present an image that is good and likable even though it might not be, right? With social media right now, I feel like everybody has this medium to show an image of themselves, which could be the polar opposite of who they really are. I know so many people, bato-bato sa langit, but I found that usually yung mas maingay, yun yung mas may tinatago.
True. Ah, yes. Sobrang hirap nun. It's actually toxic to yourself. It's so hard
Yeah,
to keep up, 'di ba?
yeah.
Then
You created this thing.
it's so
And you
hard.
set expectations for yourself, di ba? Lalo na yung sa forma and keeping this appearance na mayaman ka or, and placing value on all the material things because you feel like that's what people look at. It's so hard to keep up. And if
It
there's like one thing that, for parents who are like raising children, if they something that they can impart, that detachment from the material things and parang to not be so attached to the forma or yung outward appearance. Wag naman yung mukhang basura yung mga anak nyo, but just what yung hindi madaling mawaw, you know, if something that I'm grateful for with my parents is that they really kept us away from that kind of value system that places a lot of value or worth on being impressed by material things. That kind of like language was not encouraged in our home na kunyari sabihin, parang ang ganda ng kotse ni ganito or ang ganda ng suot na ganon. That wasn't a kind of conversation that was encouraged in our home. Actually, we were not allowed to speak that way because parang I think we were being trained not to place value and to be so impressed and to parang equate a certain appearance of prosperity to mean that these people are good and kind and generous because it doesn't follow. It doesn't even follow na if they have all those things na talagang mayaman sila. We know this now, right? We know this
yes.
now na ang dami na kung sino yung maporma, sino yung madaming designer this and that. A lot of the times, hindi sila nakakaipon or they're actually in debt just to
Yes.
keep up
Struggling.
like this appearance. So something that you can impart to your kids or to impressionable minds.
Yes, and it's for you rin. At least, 'di ba, just be yourself and you will know really who your friends are.
Mm-hmm. And I
And
would love, right, for
yes.
people to love you as you are. And I think today actually may nakita akong parang video na ganyan na if you try to be something else or you try to have a different appearance of something that you're not, they might like you for whatever it is, but nobody will really love you because they'll never know who you are at the core underneath all of those things, right? And it's such a nice feeling when you know that someone loves you kahit na hindi ka mag-try, kahit na hindi ka magbihis or hindi ka maporma or wala kang alahas and you're not connected to all these people or you're not part of a certain class in society. If you're just you being you and someone loves you for that, I think it's such an irreplaceable thing, but you can't discover that unless you let go of all
Yeah,
of these outward things that might tell people something else, right?
exactly. Do you. It's just you, right? What makes you
It's cliche.
happy and
Right?
just yeah,
It sounds cliche,
yeah,
but
but it's hard.
it's really true.
Yeah.
And I really, for me, and it's a struggle because when you're young, you want to keep up, 'di ba? Kasi this is the popular thing and you see that the popular people have this and that. They dress this way, they fix their hair a certain way, they look a certain way, they have certain kind of skin quality and they use certain kind of skin products.
And they have so
But
many friends.
they have so many friends. But if you just try to be nothing, try not to impress anybody and just be your absolute most basic self, and you'll see who's still attracted to you. I think it's very valuable.
Yeah, yeah, 'di ba? It really will help you, your mental state. As I told you, it's hard to keep up a facade. It's really hard if uh and yeah, just and then it will build your confidence because you'll be happy, it'll be, diba? Just be you. Yeah, it's really a cliche, but that's really true.
It's really
Diba?
true.
Wow.
Parang ang bilis ano. Parang actually, we talked about so many things and actually, I'm looking at the time now. It's been an hour. Parang feeling ko, I seriously thought that we were only talking for 15 minutes because it was so exciting and we were so excited and tired from talking
Super.
about these negative traits. But
Diba? Yung
yeah.
energy, it's just really heavy if you really think about it, diba? It's interesting. Kasi nga, again, mental state's very important now. It's so interesting
Mhm,
nga, di ba, na all the social media things and everything, you also learn about going back to basics and just
mhm,
being relaxed, no?
mhm.
So, yun. So, ikaw, any general tips you would like to share on how to deal with people who have these toxic traits?
I think, and this is from experience, my general, like, blanket tip na panglaban sa lahat ng toxic traits na to is to avoid negativity. Kasi lahat ng tong na-mention natin, lahat to negative things, negative comments about people. Like, if you're always, you try to be pleasant and positive in all your casual conversations, right? When you approach people and always try to see the good in them, like, you don't want to be that toxic tita na pinag-uusapan parati sa mga reunion, right? Because yung mga comments na akala mo innocent comments na side comments lang, especially yung tumataba ka, bakit ganyan yung skin mo, yung ganito, sinong boyfriend mo, kailan ka mag-aasawa, kailan ka mag-anak. People never forget that. And they never trust you again to share anything important with you kasi alam nila na negative yung outlook mo and you're out to get them and make them feel bad, right? So, examples of these like negative interactions, yung I feel like some people, they always try to find the negative in whatever you say. Yung kahit na sabi mo, ano ng job mo ngayon? And then pag sinabi mong, oh, I'm actually focusing on my creative work right now. Yung may sasagot na, may pera ba dyan? You know?
Yeah.
Pagka naman, kunyari, oh, I'm a lawyer na, wow, naman parang, dami-dami mo ng pera, hindi ka naman namimigay, ang yabang mo na. Yung gano'n, di ba, parating merong comment, imbes na, can we just practice saying, I'm so happy for you. You seem happy. I'm glad that you're doing what you love. Is it rewarding? Take care of yourself. Make sure you don't work too hard. I think about you. Nice things. You can never go wrong with nice things, but you always go wrong kahit na seemingly well-meaning yung negative comment mo. People don't see your intention when you say stuff like that. Can you just please, especially when it's a casual interaction in a party with people you don't see very often and you're not very close with them, can you not make your last contact be so memorable because it was awful? Can you be that person na when your relatives think of you, they think of you like, oh yeah, she's so sweet. Every time she sees me, she always like hugs me and says, how are you? You look happy, you look nice, and whatever. And be that kind of person, because I personally always remember those relatives who are sweet to me, and I never forget those who are mean. Right? So you want to be that nice one to everyone as much as possible, and at the same time, I mentioned earlier, don't be an audience to toxic people. Learn how to respond right away so that you're not a victim or a recipient of bad comments, right? Either you say on the spot that you don't appreciate it, or meron kang, subtle comeback sa tita na sinasabi na mataba ka, or sway the conversation in a different direction so that that so that everybody you talk to, they know that you don't entertain negative things. Because the more you entertain, the more that people will be encouraged to share those things because they know that you're game for that toxic topic. Kung mahilig ka sa chismis, tapos may nag-chismis sa'yo, tapos ikaw parang, ay, oo nga, no, grabe naman, ganyan, ganyan. Then they're gonna keep coming to you. And then you're gonna be sucked into that whole thing. Pero kung talagang you keep your distance and you don't entertain it, then people will be bored by you. Kasi hindi ka mahilig mag-ganon. Like, you know, um, I encountered this one time. I think like a conversation between parents tapos yung isa pinupuna yung parang parenting style ng ibang tao. And the other, you know, mom, instead of saying, ay, oh nga, no, grabe nga, bakit ganon? She actually just said, you know, we're all trying our best. I'm not going to judge anybody for how they do because what they're doing and how they're doing it because we're all trying our best and sometimes we fail but we're all trying our best so I don't want to like think that of them. And once people hear that, then they're going to stop because they know that they can't talk to you that way. And you have to be secure also about how you feel. Like I'm very big on like calling out yung mga anti-woman sentiments, yung mga nireregla, mga sexist comments or whatever. So people know, even though they might think napaka-sensitive naman yan, napaka-ano naman yan, ano, man-hater or whatever, you have to be secure enough to be fine if those people don't come to you with those things. Because when you stop it like that, hindi talaga nila ikaw ano eh. Kahit na pagchismisan ka pa. And I know that people around me talk about me in that way na parang, uy, wag mo sabihin ng ganyan kasi masyadong sensitive yan. Baka mamaya mapagalitan ka na naman kasi nung isang araw sinermonan ako tungkol sa transphobia at saka ganyan na wag na intersectionality, ganyan-ganyan. Sige, siya na yung magaling. You know, yung may ganon. That's fine. That's fine. They can all talk to each other about those toxic things. You don't want to be part of it. And you also just don't want to be a passive person in those kinds of conversations. And I try to avoid it because, you know, sometimes people ask me, pagka kunyari, I try to stop transphobic comments in casual conversations, which are very common. Tapos sinastop ko talagang sasabihin nila, bakit trans ka ba? You know, it's like, I'm not trans. But for me, if I don't stand up for that, if I don't stand up for people who aren't like me, and I don't empathize, then I'm also betraying them. And I'm also part of the problem. So don't hesitate to keep people outside your circle if you want to get rid of this toxic stuff, because the more we all stand up against it, then the more people will know it's not acceptable, as opposed to paisa-isa lang. Kasi kung paisa-isa lang, di parati lang, basta wag mong kausapin ng ganyan yan, but tayong dalawa, we can talk about it. You're not helping. You're not helping. So that's my tip. How about you?
A hot tip, siguro, I think it's really awareness muna, like sa self, right? Like me before, I used to say, when I was driving, tapos merong annoying driver sa tapat ko, tapos nakita, kasi babae. I used to say that a lot when I was younger, and I realized, shucks, babae din ako. Alam mo yun? So, I really had to have that self-awareness, diba? Na parang, teka, diba? So, exactly. It's not like I didn't do this before. I was toxic too, but you have to learn talaga. And when you have that self-awareness, before you speak, mafe-feel mo yun eh. Before you speak, lang, wait.
Oo nga, diba? Maybe it's not good.
Not good. May ganun na eh. Ganun din ako before eh. Parang, ingay. Kasi yung bakla, di ba? Before, you would say that before. And I'm guilty of that too. When you're young, you just go along with what you hear all the time.
Exactly. And I'm so guilty of that when I was younger. And parang, yung mga bading, ganyan. You know, and then you learn and then you do better. But
Yes.
doing better doesn't stop at like just your personal, like, you stop doing that. You have to stop people also.
Exactly. So it starts from you, and then eventually when you see it already around you, then you're already confident. Kasi nga, what if
Yeah.
you're still doing that, and then you teach somebody else and you're still practicing that
Hmm.
toxic trait? That's
Yeah.
weird, diba? So exactly what Kia said. It's just also being confident that you're able to say no to those things. And even though people will talk about you because you're that
Hmm.
person,
Hmm.
that doesn't matter anymore, 'di ba? At least you did your part because it
Yeah.
really should stop. It's
Yeah.
nicer to have a very positive, 'di ba,
Yeah. And it helps you also
atmosphere.
find the right people for you.
Exactly.
'Di ba? Kasi if you tolerate that, then you invite more of it. And so don't complain kasi wala kang sinasabi and you're part of the problem. Like in the beginning, you might feel bad na they think na parang napaka-sensitive mo naman yan. Bakit lahat na lang inaano parang hindi naman siya bading. Bakit niya dinedefend yung mga bading. Yung mga ganong stuff,
Exactly.
you
And
invite more of it if you don't stop it. And start with your immediate circle, right? And be brave enough to do that. Like
brave.
throughout the years, I've had several conversations with my wife about everything. Pagka may mga ganyang topic, like, how do you feel about that? How would you say this thing? Or if we catch each other na parang, oh, you shouldn't really be saying that anymore. I know it used to be funny before, but now it's not funny anymore. You shouldn't say yung mga ganyan or yung
And yes,
misgendering, right?
exactly.
Misgendering, dead naming, or question each other and have these conversations. Don't smart shame each other and be brave enough to have that kind of conversation within your relationship and within your family. If you have children, especially, ask them why. Because otherwise, you don't raise them with that kind of critical thinking and also to think for themselves na, oh, bakit kaya? Why do we need a gender neutral bathroom?
Yes.
Diba?
'Di ba?
Those kinds of
Daming conversations
conversations
yun.
that you
It's
can
just
have.
yes. And tsaka yung right now, 'di ba, people say, ang hirap na magbiro ngayon kasi
Yeah.
dati okay lang ganun. But really, actually, dati hindi naman talaga siya okay
Yeah.
eh. People
Just
were just
nobody
not
was calling you
afraid.
out.
Yes. But it shouldn't be actually funny. Like,
Yeah.
especially about disabilities, 'di
Yeah.
ba?
Like, pa yung
Slapstick
say na parang
comedy,
grabe, I can't
'di
be
ba?
myself anymore because, it's not okay to be kidding around anymore. And parang listen to yourself. On
Exactly.
one
And you can't
hand, you
use
just want the freedom to be kidding around. And the other hand, someone is suffering and being oppressed and being abused because of the language that you're
yes, 'di ba?
perpetuating. So think about that. Parang ikaw na inconvenience ka lang because you have to change your terminology, right?
Yes.
But the thing
It's
is, more people have to speak up in
it's
order to
awareness,
correct. It's
'di ba? It's
awareness
awareness
talaga
really
and we have
needed.
to be
They
brave.
really, yeah. And it's nice, 'di ba? It's better to have a conversation that way. It's nicer to have that kind of atmosphere. Syempre, pero of course, meron naman yung positive toxicity. So, what's that? Positive being toxic.
Toxicity.
Yes, but that's another.
Toxic positivity is
Yes, that's the
another
one. Sorry
topic.
about that. Yes, it's another topic, but that's interesting too, 'di ba?
Yeah.
So many things to think about, 'di ba? Like what Key was saying a while ago about pag na-compliment ka rin naman, it's easy to say, just say thank you. Yung hindi
Yeah.
ka magsabi na, di naman, kasi naman, ano yung ganon, di ba? Anyway,
Yeah.
that's another,
That's
another
another
topic.
topic of how
Yeah.
to receive compliments. It's very
Yes,
interesting
yun
too,
ang
right?
wala. Sa
Yeah.
Pilipinas, it's so hard.
I
Anyway,
think like, yeah, one of just the bottom line is we're so used to accepting the status quo.
yes.
And the reason na ngayon parang iniisip natin na parang, uy, masama nang pala yun. Because we accepted it for so long. As ganun lang talaga. Ganyan lang talaga magsalita yan. Hayaan mo na or whatever.
Yes. But
And
you have
now
to
we're
question.
at the point that we can have conversations about this and we can actually call it out and say, this is not acceptable. We can adjust ourselves, we can change our language. We now know how important it is to just change your terminology and to change your language and to evolve with the times. So let's not be afraid to do that and stop accepting things as just the way they are and not to change, or else you're going to become obsolete. And before you know it, and sometimes I see this in people of our generation na parang napag-iwanan na ng panahon, and when you talk to them, parang sabi mo na parang, ay, ang tanda na kasi, wala na tayong magagawa dyan. And it's such a bad look. Do
Yes.
not, again, like going back to our conversation before, yung updating our queer terminology, right?
Yes.
You don't want to be left behind. You don't want to be seen as that intolerant tita na, mapanglait, mapang-insulto, can't move on, like can't, keep up with the times, right?
Yeah, be the nice, good model because you want to share your knowledge kasi ikaw na yung has had that experience. So,
Yeah.
teach
Yeah.
them.
And isn't that the best flex too? If you are really happy with your life, you should exude happiness and positivity. And if you just spew negativity, it really shows the negative things in your life also, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whew. Wow, final
Right?
words?
Yeah. Just be, but be kind to one another, though. Be kind to one another.
Diba? Basic, no?
It's so basic. It's so hard to do. Because you know why? For many people, it's boring. And it's if you're insecure, it's hard to be kind because you're trying to you really just want to make people look bad so that you look good. So you have to ask yourself, why don't I have that innate appreciation and confidence in my goodness that I have to put people down in order to feel good? Maybe you have to work on yourself. Again, it's all coming from within.
Yes, that's nice. So,
Right?
yun, positive and be kind. That's it.
It's not that hard.
Wow. Wow, this has been another episode of Salt and Pepe podcast. Wow.
We will see you next time. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you again. We'll wait for your comments. Again, thank you very much for listening. See you in our next episode.
Till next time.
Yes. Bye.
Thanks for letting us spice up your day.
Keep on listening to Salt and Pepe podcast.
Konting alat
Konting anghang.
and Pepe all around.
This has been Lia.
And Shakira.
See you next time.